Sure, here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill and Amon's Bogus Hangout. Uh, I'm going to have Doc introduce himself. Doc?
Hello, everybody. Doc Sheldon here, Intrinsic Value SEO and Search News Central. Just general Mr. Snark this week, I guess.
And the message I have from YouTube is Hangouts on there is going away August 1st.
Well, that's the first time they've actually given a date, isn't it?
Yeah. So they still have YouTube quick streaming, but I don't think that records.
Yeah, I think that's strictly live.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Very much. Hey, Steve. Introduce
So,
yourself.
Steve Grinzer, Steam Driven Media, and real estate agent to the stars, or at least my daughter.
And I'm Bill Slosky. I'm the author of SEO by the Sea and the director of SEO research for Go Fish Digital. So we were talking a little bit about SEO before we started this show. We mentioned TF-IDF. I've been having a discussion with some people who published an article at Search Engine Land about the article they published, which was misleading a little bit.
A little bit?
A little bit. That's an understatement.
I think they could have gone into detail on keyword density and been more on point.
Well, they told you the difference between Moz as a website and how many backlinks it has and what was that, domain authority, whatever that is, and some site called Alpine SEO, which has a lot less links and a lot lower domain authority. And the Alpine website outranks Moz for a query term. What does SEO stand for? The Alpine site is ranked at number 2. The Moz site is ranked at 20. Moz, the page that Moz ranks for that doesn't even have the word stand on it. So it doesn't have a match for the query term at all. It still ranks at 20th, which isn't too bad.
Yeah.
So there was saying that if you applied one of the TF-IDF tools to Moz, it could rank better and it could outrank that Alpine term. Well, if you put the word stand on it, it could outrank the Alpine term.
Yeah, that's a radical concept. Why don't you put the search query on it?
It's a little bit easier to put the search query on the page if they really cared about what does SEO stand for as a query term. I'm sure there's lots of traffic for that one.
Is that one of those things where the keyword density needs to be at least 1?
As a minimum, yeah.
Yeah, that's like the first rule of keyword density. It's like the magic TF-IDF. It's the new keyword density of the 21st century, or keyword density 2.0.
Well, we do love buzzwords in this industry.
And that seems to be the issue, is you got to be able to hang your hat on some trick. Heaven forbid you just do good work and good marketing. There's always got to be some trick.
I think you get away with doing good work and good marketing because you get referred to by the people you've done that work for, to other people in the same business.
Yep.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed in that article that got through their editorial. That was, besides being full of crap, it was very blatant. Like I think you referred to it as an infomercial.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
I did ask
Do you think they got $1,000 for that review?
I did ask if they're getting paid to publish it.
What? Trying to take my snark title away from me.
Yeah. I think SEO industry needs more snark.
Most definitely.
I had some guy
A little
on Twitter accuse me of being an SEO gatekeeper because I wouldn't help him. I told him, you know, I'm not going to argue with you anymore because you don't listen.
Yeah.
And you're wasting my time. As a competitor, it's in my best interest. As a competitor in search results, it's in my best interest not to argue with you. And he said, oh, you're just an SEO gatekeeper. And I said, yeah, I'm not helping you because you don't listen. Sorry. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't mind helping anybody. But when they stop listening, no future there. If you want me to give you an answer just so you can tell me why I'm wrong, I can go to my wife for that.
Yeah.
Exactly. I got somebody next to me in the bedroom there that'll do that.
And happily.
Well, that's the unfortunate thing. You can usually tell early on in a conversation when they're more interested in what they're going to say next than what you said last. Yeah. And people like that just aren't worth the time.
No.
Yeah, somebody suggested I have a battle over TF-IDF with Barry Schwartz on Twitter with John Mueller as a referee. John Mueller tweets the word yawn. And I seconded it.
So, well, I saw somebody had quoted or retweeted something that John said. I think he was actually basically said, don't waste your time chasing TF-IDF, you know.
He said that about a month ago.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that there are some people that like taking shots at John, but, you know, that was a pretty clear, unambiguous statement. It's old technology.
There's new stuff that works better.
It works better. That's the beauty. When you start getting into vectoring, why in the world would you even consider an old technology like TF-IDF? What was it? BM25, I think?
Because there are no SEO tool makers using the BM25. I guess it's too complicated. I mean, it's only...
Well, it was cutting edge back in the mid-90s, bud.
It's only 3 decades old as opposed to 4.
There you go.
Yeah.
What else is going on today?
I'm looking at a Google patent. They're talking about how they're doing clustering of search results when there are lots of good results for a query. And they're finding different ways to cluster those. And they're using evaluators to compare the different clustering approaches they use. They're using people from one of the crowdsourced sites. Let me see. Mechanical Turk.
Oh yeah.
It would be interesting seeing Google using Mechanical Turk to rank search results, especially after we know people use Mechanical Turk to do things like click on search results.
Mhm.
Maybe you can hire the same company.
Maybe. I was surprised I didn't see a reference to Fiverr in there.
You can always go out and hire one of those Chinese mobile device click farms. Those are impressive.
And I've seen videos about them, but
Now, the people setting those up, they have some decent, grasp of what the technology is and how it works.
so those are purposefully set up to click on things in search results.
Not necessarily search results. Where they work best is like YouTube,
Really?
because then you get, there's a certain amount of velocity that's taken into the YouTube rankings. So if you release a video and you get, X number of views in the first hour, and they watch X number of minutes of the video, all those things contribute to how well you do on YouTube. So the trick is being able to do it in a way that doesn't get you flagged. So that's why they're doing it with these mobile phones, because they're a lot easier to fake, because you're running them all off of cell towers instead of IP addresses. Not that I know anybody who's ever used those services.
Of course not.
Of course not.
It's how YouTube influencers start making the big money.
Well, so it depends on what niche you're in, because some of those niches are just heavily dominated by people who are actually good at what they do. There are some other niches that are, what do I say? They're more fringe, where the people viewing them and the people selling and whatever. Let's say maybe you're mostly an affiliate marketer and you want to drive a whole lot of people to your binoculars website, and so you've got a video of you watching birds and recommending this great camera and this great set of binoculars. It might not hurt to drive a few thousand fake reviews to add it early to get it to show up higher when people are searching on things for bird watching. It's a game.
Mm-hmm.
But as with most of these things, YouTube frowns on it pretty heavily when they catch you. However, like a lot of things, if you can make all your money before they catch you,
Well, it's a prime hunting ground for somebody that's willing to churn and burn.
yes, it is.
So it's not too far removed from some of the early Wild West days of SEO. Wait, we're still in those days.
We're still in those days.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I still think I've always thought that one of Google's biggest failings is they never hired legit good black hats. to tell them, you know, this is really cool that you want to do this. However, here are all the ways I could abuse that.
Mm-hmm. Which the government caught on to the wisdom of that many years ago. You know, they hired hackers right and left. If a guy proved himself to be a capable hacker, he could expect a GS position right down the road, you know.
As soon as he got out of jail, that was the first thing that was going to happen. He was going to get.
Well, you know, you got to have a negotiating tactic when you start talking salary.
Mm-hmm.
$50,000 a year versus 3 years in jail. Yeah.
What does Kevin Mitnick do these days?
Yeah, he's an intrusion specialist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he gets paid very well for it now. More power to him.
And we also saw that Google just took the number 2 slot for the largest GDPR fine. $230 million. Wow.
Really?
Nice.
Google used to lead the pack with their 50 million fine, but 230,
that's getting it up there.
I'm telling you.
Well, so, you know, it's bad enough that you have a security breach, but then on top of that, you're going to get slapped really hard by the government because you had a security breach.
Yeah. Well, I got a friend of mine who he ended up having to go bankrupt, a company that handled medical records for cancer patients. Okay. When a doctor would send somebody in for testing, then their test results would be run through his company. And because some employee was using a portal-to-portal on their break, they got breached by the federal government. They never actually lost any patient data, but the federal government was able to hack into it. So the feds ended up holding him hostage and trying to get him to sign a voluntary fine and go into 20 years of semi-annual reviews and whatnot. And he told him to go piss up a rope, and it turned into a major battle. Well, he ended up going bankrupt. He lost his company, you know. And he wrote a really good book on it called The Devil Inside the Beltway. And
we'd have never got this guy on that drug bust if we hadn't put the drugs in his car.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically what it boiled down to, yeah.
Exactly what it boils down to. It's ridiculous.
But it was very enlightening, you know, reading his book. It's very enlightening to see how little there exists in terms of checks and balances on some Fed agencies.
Well,
these guys, they do not publish. You have to adhere to their guidelines. And they, to this date, do not publish any guidelines. But they will hold you, put your feet to the fire for not complying. Now, what kind of a brain fart is that?
It's a good one for them. I've got a friend who used to be in the jewelry business years ago, when the gold buying off everything became real popular. And the police, and he was rejecting a lot of people because he was obvious the stuff was stolen.
Yeah.
And the police came to him, set up an operation where he would buy everything off of the street, and then they would use that as evidence to go back and arrest these people for robbery. And he did that because he wanted to be a good guy and help the police. Well, he went ahead and helped the police. They did their thing. But when it hit the news, the only thing the news said was, such and such jewelry store has been buying stolen property. They didn't say in cooperation with the police department.
Yeah.
And that pissed him off. It caused him all kinds of drama. And then about a year later, he saw the detective that he worked with at a party somewhere, and he went up to talk to the guy, and the detective's like, "Oh, I remember you. You're the guy that bought all that stolen stuff." And he's like, I bought it because you wanted me to. And the cop's like, yeah, whatever. You still bought stolen merchandise. That's all I care. And it's like, okay, this is the new rule. We will no longer help you because it never works out good for the person that helped.
Nope. I had a
It's just
friend
sad.
many years ago that did some freelance work for the DEA. They needed somebody that had some street cred to make a buy to bust this guy. And they approached him and he said, yeah. So he went and did it. And of course they rolled in and they busted everybody there. And they neglected to point out the fact that he was their CI, and he ended up serving 2.5 years because of this arrest. Because he got mouthy with some DEA agent, and the guy just decided to forget that he had been cooperating with them.
It ain't right, man. There comes a big old truck loaded down with fuel.
Think that somehow how we end up getting in trouble with people who run third world countries who we make deals with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we conveniently forget the details of those deals.
Well, look at all these people who wear those Che Guevara T-shirts. Yeah, he was for the people, except for the tens of thousands of ones he murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Let's forget about all that. That's kind of irrelevant.
This guy, the U.S. government's chasing after for $12.5 billion, El Chapo.
Yeah.
Nice guy, but
Well, I'm sure Doc could speak
they made the deal.
to
Now they're trying to get the money back.
Doc can speak to the culture down there when it comes to the cartels a lot better than either one of us probably can. But from some of the people I know in that area, the cartels tend to be mostly the good guys as far as the locals are concerned, because they're the ones spending the money to help people out.
Well, they're buying.
Unless you're killing.
They're either buying silence through good acts, or they're buying silence through violence.
Yeah.
The old mafia style is in play down here, where if you cross somebody, yeah, you will die very slowly in a warehouse someplace, but so too will 17 members of your family and extended family. And that's the kind of stuff that keeps people's mouths shut. That terror, that fear that it's not just you, it's your entire family and friends and business associates, and your business will burn down, and they'll kill 35 people because you opened your Yap once. So people don't open their Yap.
It's kind of terrifying.
Reminds me of that video we saw over in Disneyland just yesterday. That big old street brawl in the middle of Disneyland, and everybody just kind of standing around going, I ain't got nothing to do with this.
Yeah. Well, there's the dysfunctional family, eh?
No kidding. I'm surprised it took 3 minutes for Disney security to respond. Good Lord. My guess is the first people from Disney security that showed up were little people. And we'll wait for the big guys with tasers to show up.
Yeah. I didn't see any tasers.
No.
I think there should have been some of those been issued. Yeah.
A couple. Yeah.
Because that one kid was large.
Yeah. And he was going to town on anybody who got within arm's reach.
Yep.
Can't imagine that's a first fight at Disney World.
No.
I know I saw a much smaller fight than that at Disneyland one time.
Yeah.
And it was just because somebody turned around and noticed somebody ogling his girlfriend or wife's butt.
Yeah.
And he made a comment, and the comments escalated, and pretty soon they came to blows. And then the two girls came to blows. The security pair that showed up was a male and female team, and the gal was like 5'2" and maybe 99 pounds, and the guy was like 6'4" and probably 230. And he stood back, and she waded in there and decked all four of them. I mean, it's like she put them all on the ground. And the entire, everybody within earshot and eye line of sight was cheering because she was a badass.
I know we were, oh, good Lord, this would have been, my daughter was probably 14 or 15, and my mom thought it'd be a good idea to buy all the girls black leather pants. It's like, no, I don't want my daughter wearing skin-tight black leather pants at her age. But, what are you going to do? Grandma bought them. And then we wound up somewhere at one of the museums in Chicago, and all of a sudden all the girls are wearing their pants, and we noticed these older, high school teenage boys following the girls around. And I dropped back and looked at him and said, so what do you think? And he goes, I like it. I said, she's only 13, right? He's like, oh, crap. And off he went. It's like, there you go. That solves that problem for today.
She's only 13, and I really miss prison.
Some of the best food I ever had. Lots. Call from Google.
Do not hang up. Your Google listing.
Yes. Yeah, I saw one of those. Somebody wrote that on one of the urinals at one of the truck stops. It's like, I've been trying to reach you about your Google listing.
My favorite meme I have seen in months is still that the handwriting on the bathroom stall is, don't beam me up right now, Scotty. I'm trying to take a and the line goes straight up the wall.
So I'm glad they developed caller ID for these things. Let you know who's calling. See that phone number where they spoof your local phone number?
Yep.
So yeah, it's the guys from Google, or pretending to be from Google.
Well, that's the problem. It's so easy to spoof a number.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a cell phone with a Delaware phone number on it. So I get phone calls spoofing the location is Delaware on my cell phone, and phone calls spoofing the location is California on my landline.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not likely to pick up either.
Well, I'm using a Skype number for my business. So what I do is I answer it and immediately mute it, and I just wait. And generally right about the 9-second mark, they hang up. Or it goes into that, do not hang up. This is an important call about your business listing, But a lot of times they'll just be silent, and then, it's a bot, and it'll hang up at 9 seconds.
You pick up the phone and there's a beep. It's the auto dialer.
Yep.
And it's sometimes a real person, but they refer to you by somebody else's name. which is a name that maybe they've identified as belonging to that number some point in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And they purchased the information. So they say, how are you today, John? And I say, good, Dolores, how are you?
Or just say, please don't call me John. I now identify as Mary Lou.
No, I'm afraid of doing that. I'm afraid of what types of phone calls I end up getting.
You start getting a whole new list of calls.
I just want them to stop. I don't want them to go off in some strange direction.
Walk on the wild side, Billy.
Yeah, not necessarily where I want to go.
But it's where all the cool kids hang out.
Never want to bow under peer pressure.
No, not a fan of peer pressure, but I can be bribed. Ice cream, links, cash, whatever.
What else is going on this week? I saw something yesterday that I meant to mention. Now it slips my mind.
So I've been seeing lots of people talking about how they want to optimize websites for EAT.
Mm.
Do you think you can do that?
I think you can keep that in the back of your mind in terms of determining the quality of what you're doing on your website. That does this contribute to my authority or my credibility in my niche, or but you can't really optimize for it. No.
Those are things that I think you can get your visitors, human visitors, to be somewhat impressed with or evaluate and be happy with. But I'm not sure that search engines have developed methods of ranking sites based on those things.
I'd agree with that. I think they have much better tools available to them, much more productive ways of ranking.
They're going to use tools that are appropriate to them. For instance, one way a search engine might tell that your website is a quality website is that people will often perform searches for some query term plus something that refers to your website particularly, like your domain name. And that combination tells Google people expect this website to have answers to queries like this. And it's a quality signal. It's maybe a sign of an expectation of expertise in whatever that query term might be. And that's how a search engine can tell stuff like that. They're looking at signals that maybe are appropriate to them and what they do. It's easier for them to find queries like that than it is to look throughout your website to see if you've listed what types of degrees you've gotten, where you've worked at, things like that. I mean, reputation is often what other people say about you as opposed to what you say about you. So they're going to look at reviews.
Yeah, because just we've always said it makes a whole lot more impact when somebody else says that Bill Slosky is the preeminent authority on patents versus Bill Slosky saying I am the preeminent authority on patents.
Right.
Unless, of course, you're trying to build an SEO certification program, then you're going to have to say it yourself because ain't nobody else going to say it.
I worked once at Google for 6 months. Yay. Therefore, I know everything about Google.
Well, plus the fact, I could put on my website that I have a doctorate and a master's and 3 bachelor's degrees, and it might impress you as a user, but Google's not going to waste their time authenticating that, investigate to see if it's valid. So
I could post that I have directly influenced the Google algorithm simply because of the things that I used to do.
Yeah. It just makes a whole lot more sense for them to work with data that they can be more confident in. And user activity is while it can be gamed to a certain extent, I don't think it's any longer something that can be meaningfully gamed when you consider the size of Google's corpus. It's just, patterns are so easy for them to identify when they're seeing them across 1 trillion pages.
Your cell phone has an Android ID or an Apple ID built into it that can be identified.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to those click phone banks. If they can match up your Android ID with your Google user ID, they can be more likely convinced that it is a real person. They do have some ways of cutting down the noise and cutting it out. If they've got a Gmail login and they see that it's adding or sending Gmails and adding stuff to social networks from somewhere in Chicago, and then 5 minutes later, someone in Mexico, they know maybe that's compromised.
Mm-hmm.
They can track those user locations. They identify that they're most likely associated with spam or malware or something that maybe shouldn't give too much credibility.
I miss the author markup that they used to have.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that they're still trying to do some type of attribution to written content and who creates it. And maybe have done some automating of that. sort of like they've done with pagination markup. That may be wishful thinking on my part.
Well, we know that the folks at NSA have that ability. I think it would just be a matter of, is it worth the resources that consumes in a non-targeted mode? I mean, to do that across the board, I think it would be a very resource intensive. But to do it, in targeted instances, perhaps, for instance, when a new piece of content appears with the Bill Slawski byline on it, that would be relatively easy and not terribly intensive to verify. Is this the same source that other verified pieces from Bill Slawski came from? But I think they'd almost have to have a reason to want to do it. Go ahead.
Some of the tests they might undertake can be computationally expensive, like reading text and images.
Mm-hmm.
But we know it's probably likely that they're using OCR technology and Street View images because they can associate those images with actual real locations in the world. So they can see a street sign on some storefront and say, okay, that is the such and such bakery. It's at this geolocation coordinates that fits with Google Maps.
Oh, even to the point of recognizing that's number 1311 Dakota Avenue because they've got the 1311 on the front of the house.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I mean, I would think it would almost have to be, because when they started building their Street View stuff,
yeah,
there wasn't any existing database that was extensive enough for them to draw on. They had to establish it. And the only way to do that would be on the fly with OCR. And it's kind of challenging, when you think about it, because just for instance, in the numbers on people's homes, so many different fonts and letter stylings and sizes and color, contrast and whatnot.
Yeah.
It had to be pretty damn good OCR technology to be able to pick up a reasonable share of those.
The real challenge is in the real world, sometimes it's impossible to find numbers like that on buildings.
Yeah, very true. And the interesting thing too, for instance, we've been in this house, we built this house about 15 years ago, and across the street, we've got a neighbor whose house number has changed 3 times in that period of time. One was when an empty lot got sold and they built a convenience store on that lot. So they shuffled everybody downstream from the last number, and they all moved 2 or 4 digits. And there's a place that's just like a quarter mile from here where the 300 block changed to the 3000 block.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And it changed from like the 310 block to the 3400 block. Okay, just to make it a little bit more interesting. I remember when I was living outside of Austin, they changed the name of the street. It's like, so many cities that named such and such boulevard after Martin Luther King or something. They changed it, and God, you talk about an uproar, because there were like 4,500 homes along this particular street that they renamed that were affected, and they didn't. They decided at City Hall to do this. They didn't ask anybody. They raised holy hell about it, because people that have been living on that street for 30 years, getting their mail there. I saw somebody commenting in a Facebook group here not too long ago about a client that had changed their domain. They just migrated their site from their old domain name to their new domain name, and then were just dumbfounded that their rankings disappeared. It's like, clients are so much fun.
Yeah, we have a name for those people. They're called derps.
There was a writer at a computer magazine who published a post saying that SEO was dead.
Yeah.
Because he had changed his personal domain from one domain name to another and didn't bother to 301 redirect the old pages to the new domain and lost all traffic to it.
I can't imagine how that would happen. Eh?
So he's complaining that the search engine didn't pick up on his new domain. And therefore SEO didn't work anymore.
Oh, well, sounds like something I'd expect to read on forums.
No, it's like Computer World.
Good Lord.
You think that guy paid $1,000 to get that article there?
Shameful thing is he could have asked somebody and
gotten 17 different answers.
maybe not. I don't think there are that many different ways to migrate a website.
No, I'm just thinking in terms of there's that many different ways to be ignorant of how it's supposed to be done, that he would probably get different answers, most of which would be wrong. Like, oh, don't worry about it, Google will figure it out. Which was apparently his philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Google's smart. They know what's going on.
They figure a lot of things out, but
but
moving from your living room to your dining room is not something they're likely to be privy to.
And there was an SEO who wrote an article last week about Google trying to figure out new stuff, like the pagination markup change. They got rid of the requirement for the pagination markup. They're going to figure it out on their own. And he wrote a bunch of things about how they're figuring out things on their own. I've never trusted them when they try to figure it out on their own.
They, historically, they stumble a lot.
They get things wrong.
I mean, look at canonicals. They're pretty consistently fucked up when it comes to figuring out the proper canonical, even when you tell them the proper canonical.
Well, that's because they said that that's just a suggestion. They use other signals.
Oh, what isn't just a suggestion? About the only damn thing that they seem to recognize as more than a mere suggestion is the DNS.
Yeah.
Well, beyond that, it's just well, if we feel like it, we might heed that. I think a lot of those things they normally heed, but not exclusively.
And what's the other one I read about last week was
Robots Tech?
having a robots meta tag index follow and having a canonical on the same page is telling Google contradictory things.
Mm-hmm.
Even though index follow is a default behavior of a robot, and if you don't bother to put index follow on a tag on the page that's the expected behavior anyway. So not putting anything isn't contradictory if you have a canonical.
I get a kick out of that's been 3 or 4 years ago. Somebody actually showed a screenshot of some site that they had taken over where the previous, I assume, dev or maybe the owner had actually inserted do follow, rel do follow. I said, okay, I love it. just invent shit as you go along. That's cool. Yeah.
Sure, why not? We don't need standards. I'm sure most browsers will be able to figure out any CSS tag you want to invent.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like the old revisit after tag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the guy who came up with that was in charge of a directory called Search BC, which was intended only for websites from British Columbia. But he decided he would put a meta tag generator up on his website to help other website owners create meta tags for their websites. He included his revisit after tag. So a lot of people who use that meta tag generator ended up with revisit after tags, even though they weren't in British Columbia.
Well, nice to hear. I remember that, but I did not realize that it was an inadvertent thing because of his proprietary system. Nice to hear that there wasn't an abundance of stupidity there. It was actually just an inadvertent error.
Well, the error was thinking that you should go to somebody else's site to use a meta tag generator.
Okay, there might have been a little bit of stupidity involved.
What does this revisit after thing do? It tells the search engines how often to come back. I'm going to just assume that because it sounds right. And I don't know that for sure, but the plus thing was it didn't hurt anything.
Well, no, it didn't hurt anything.
Nobody knew what it was.
I think I'm gonna start adding in my metadata. Rank this page number 1.
That'd be as good as using TF-IDF.
There you go.
So that'll help you rank automatically overnight too.
Did you start to say, Steve?
I was just going to say if we could add some kind of a robust tag that says, if viewer is lawyer, don't show website, redirect to. There, ADA compliance finished.
There was a thread I was in this morning on GDPR where there was, a lot, a few hundred comments, and everybody's spouting their off the top of their head thoughts as though they were fact. About in terms, so many of them were just flat out wrong, and the biggest question that was coming up was whether or not the European Union or the EA could actually do anything to an American company. Well, try that. Let me know how that works out for you there, mate. You may learn something about the meaning of reciprocity.
Often when they're international laws, they're something that is brought into a country by treaty. And the U.S. Senate would often have to approve those things. The U.S. Senate doesn't work that well anymore.
That well? You're being charitable.
I know.
Wow, here's another one just from a few hours ago. Looks like they're getting ready to fine Marriott International $99 million under GDPR. Apparently, 339 million guest records were exposed.
Ooh.
I could see us going back to a cash-based system without any kind of tracking whatsoever, just to avoid these penalties.
Well, it wouldn't be at all difficult for somebody like Marriott. You want to go online, make a reservation, you pick what you want, they give you an arbitrary alphanumeric key code.
Yeah. Tokenized transaction.
None of your data is attached to that whatsoever. You haven't entered any of your data. You simply asked for this room on this date, and they give you this alphanumeric key code, and then you show up at the desk with that code, and then you provide them your data.
Yeah.
Now, they still have data. They still have PI they have to protect at that point, but it wasn't online. That would simplify things so much.
It would be on an internal system only.
Yeah.
I remember years ago working for an insurance company. Good Lord, this would have been in the late 90s. And they had this huge internal network, and they wanted to open up a branch office. And their solution was to just, put it on the internet and just let people from the other office log in across the internet. And no other security, and it was just a simple username, password, and they were fairly generic. I think the username was the name of the company, and the password was something you can, yeah. And it's like, no, at the very least, you people need to set up some kind of a VPN tunnel between here and here. Well, that's going to cost us an extra $50 a month. It's dude, you're profiting $50 million a year. Shut up and do it. But IT is an expense. It's never seen as anything other than a cost.
Yeah.
Until they get sued, and then they yell at IT for not protecting them.
Yeah, why didn't you protect us? Right.
Yeah. Here's my stack of emails and handwritten memos saying, please do this. Which is where we need to get with our ADA and GDPR compliance with clients, is get a new system in place, not necessarily just one that says in the contracts, hey, if you get busted for this, it's not my fault. But one saying that you need to be aware of this. And
well, I think that E&O insurance for guys like us is very close to becoming a necessity. Because if I was doing the SEO or development or security for Marriott, I'd feel like I had a 6-foot wide target on my back right now. If my area of responsibility had anything to do with them getting hammered for that, fine.
Yep. It's been, good Lord, I haven't had E&O insurance in a very long time.
Oh, I haven't had it for nearly 20 years.
Yeah. And that was because I quit doing on-site, networking. I just network, hardware and stuff like that. I quit doing all that. Quit doing security work and just was doing marketing and web development. Well, now it's gotten to the point where those things can get you in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So I may have to go talk to my insurance guy and see what he's got available cheap.
Well, you
I
know,
can't imagine it costs.
I haven't looked at it in years, but I mean, it used to. I think I used to cost me like I think $17, $18 a month. You know,
Yeah.
it was unreasonable. It was unbelievably cheap, and it was a major moneymaker for them.
Yeah.
Because trying to get them to pay out was really an uphill battle. You know.
Yeah. That's where you're really glad you have the insurance coverage, not because they'll pay, but because they'll fight.
Yep. And usually very effectively.
Yeah. And I really don't want to go back to contracts with clients. I hate contracts. I've only ever seen them as ways to screw people.
Well, any contract can be breached, you know.
Yeah. They're only as good as the people signing them. So,
you know, the part of the contracts that I think are usually valuable are the exclusions.
Hmm.
You know, those exclusionary clauses are really the only ones that, because the rest of it is covered by common practice.
Well, the real benefit to a contract is they allocate responsibility and they make everybody aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Who's responsible for what? Yeah.
the thing is, every single time I've ever seen a contract used, it was used by one party or the other to screw the other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know somebody right now who's in the process of trying to get $250,000 out of a guy who owes it to him, but the guy's pointing to one little clause in the contract that he's like, oh, nope, according to this clause, I don't have to pay it. You're screwed. Where if this were a handshake deal, you'd go up and punch the guy in the nose and say, give me my damn money. I mean, $250,000 is nothing to laugh at either. That's a big chunk of money.
And if it had been a handshake deal in most jurisdictions in the country, the common view of the court would probably have sustained that he was owed the money.
Yep.
Assuming he had the receipt and, you know, some communication of expectations and responsibilities.
Yep.
Yeah, those oral contracts can be treated just like written contracts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in most jurisdictions. Well, that hour went quick, man.
Yeah, it did.
When you talk SEO, it really flies right on by.
And no yelling and screaming.
Nah, no need to scream. All right, well, thank you everybody for joining us. Have a good day. We'll see you
Same
now.
to you. Bye all.